Parents of twins, if you're familiar with far-off drop-offs...
Dad, stop, right here.
Or get DMs about what's for dinner, you may be experiencing tween milestones. For your son or daughter, these can start at age 9. HPV vaccination, a type of cancer prevention against certain HPV-related cancers, can start then too.
For most, HPV clears on its own. But for those who don't clear the virus, it can cause certain cancers later in life.
Embrace this phase. Help protect them in the next.
Ask their doctor today about HPV vaccination. Brought to you by Merck.
It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Sponsored by Secure Cash, LLC. Talking the news with Noah Layden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noah.
On 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me, 5 o'clock. Good morning. It is Monday, April 14th. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center. A mix of sun and clouds today, high 64. Tonight and overnight showers, low 52. And then Tuesday, morning rain, sunshine in the afternoon, high 67. If you are walking out the door with us right now, it is 43 and partly cloudy in New Rochelle up in Westchester County. It's 41 and partly cloudy in Westfield over in New Jersey. And it's 48 and clear right outside our Midtown studios.
The top 5 at 5.
What's with all the plane and helicopter crashes? President Trump doubling down on tariffs. Mayor Adam jets out of town. Is Mahmoud Khalil packing already? A dog goes on the attack on Long Island. All right, let's get into at 5:01. I don't know if you were catching this story over the weekend. Someone purposely set fire to Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's home. This was on Saturday night into Sunday. Shapiro says he got a knock at his door around 2 a.m. from state troopers telling him to get out. Somehow, someone was able to get into his house and start this fire. Now, the night before, he had family members over, and they had been celebrating Passover, the first night of Passover. And so it's not clear if this is a hate crime, if this is just something against the governor himself. Police will investigate that, but they did catch the person who started this fire. Here was the governor who held a press conference yesterday, was pretty emotional during it.
If this individual was trying to deter me from doing my job as your governor, rest assured, I will find a way to work even harder. This kind of violence is becoming far too common in our society. It is not okay, and it has to stop.
So pretty quickly, they caught the individual they say allegedly started this fire. His name is Cody Balmer. He's from Harrisburg. Police holding a news conference as well yesterday.
We are preparing a criminal complaint to charge him. This is not a record yet, but the charges will include attempted murder, terrorism, aggravated arson, and aggravated assault.
So this is how police described it. They say this individual, Cody Balmer, hopped the fence surrounding the property. Now, this is the official governor's residence. So the fact that he was able to hop the fence is probably a story in itself, and then was able to get into the house and set it on fire. Now, it wasn't where the Shapiro family and their guests were sleeping. It was a different portion of the house, but he had some incendiary device that he was able to get into the house. And so there's going to be an investigation that, of course, goes into how this individual got around. You would think there's state troopers outside of this house. Shapiro, again, talking about the fact that the night before, on Saturday night, he had celebrated the first night of Passover with his family, and he wanted to know that anybody who thought about doing this again in the future, that he would stand up to all of them.
If he was trying to terrorize our family, our friends, the Jewish community who joined us for a Passover Seder in that room last night, hear me on this. We celebrated our faith last night proudly, and in a few hours we will celebrate our second Seder of Passover again proudly. No one will deter me or my family or any Pennsylvanian from celebrating their faith openly and proudly.
Now, state police gave not a whole lot of details about the cause of the fire, but they did say it caused significant amount of damage to a portion of the residence. Shapiro and his family had been sleeping in a different part of the house, and nobody was hurt, so that's the good part of the story. Shapiro actually splits his time between the mansion that houses governors since it was built back in the 1960s and a home he has right outside Philadelphia in Abington, about 100 miles away. 504, let's bring it back home and go up to the Bronx. Police want to know who shot and killed a 24-year-old in front of his home in the Bronx. Shots rang out. This was about 5 a.m. Sunday morning. Jeremy Ortega struck twice in the chest, raced to Jacoby Hospital where he was pronounced dead.
Terrible. That's my friend as well, so it's just a sad situation to be in right now. This is supposed to be a good neighborhood, and it's sad to see it kind of going down, but not much we could do but pray, for real.
A distant relative says that Ortega turned 24 just last weekend, only to be gunned down a week later in front of his home. Now, they don't know really what was going on. Was he the target of this gunfire? Neighbors describe this area, Throgs Neck area, as really quiet, a peaceful residential block in the Bronx, and so they're not used to this kind of violent crime.
Oh, he was a nice person, very nice person, you know.
It's one of the quietest neighborhoods probably in the Bronx. Yeah, like this is, stuff like this, it's not common, right? So when you see this shocks you.
So Ortega's family moved to the block just last year. Police, again, looking for, they say several suspects, don't have a motive just yet, or at least have not released one for that murder over the weekend on Sunday morning. 5:05. So what is going on? There's been the helicopter crashes, a couple plane crashes. It's been just sort of an awful time in the air. So two Massachusetts-based doctors, one who was an executive director at Rochester Health Systems, as well as their son, daughter, and their children, their two partners, all killed when their plane crashed into a field. This was Saturday up in state in Columbia County, New York. It was Dr. Michael Goff and Dr. Joy Sanini's daughter, Karina. So Karina, this whole thing is just so tragic because Karina was a graduate of MIT, a recent one, and a soccer player. She had also been named the NCAA's Woman of the Year her senior year. So her and her boyfriend, James Santoro, were on this flight, as well as her brother, Jared Goff, and his partner. They all died in this crash.
The scene is approximately 100 yards in length, with the aircraft being compressed, buckled, and embedded into the terrain.
Now, the entire family was on their way to a Passover Seder. There was one child who was not on the flight. So the daughter, Anika, she wasn't on the plane. The NTSB did not say who was flying the plane. They did not give a cause for the crash.
The ATC controller attempted to relay this low-altitude alert to the pilot and also tried to contact him 3 additional times. Unfortunately, he was unsuccessful. There was no response from the pilot, and there was no distress call. Karina
Groff was a soccer player at MIT. She had been named the NCAA's Woman of the Year in 2022. She was at medical school, NYU Grossman School of Medicine, and she, in fact, had given a recent interview.
I'm planning on going to medical school, so I'm super excited for that. I'll probably, it'll be a change, so I'm excited for that, and I'm excited to learn medicine and be a doctor.
Yeah, all around just a horrendous story. WABC News Time, 5:09, the NTSB asking for patience as it investigates the deadly helicopter crash in the Hudson last Thursday. The NTSB said there's a lot of work to be done to try to figure out why that chopper fell out of the sky around 3:30 in the afternoon on Thursday.
We also are aware that there are dive teams. The New York Police Department is still diving for components and pieces of the helicopter that we are still looking to recover.
Now, that was over the weekend. I think the divers are out of the water. The NTSB still asking for the public to send in any still images or video from the incident. Check your doorbell camera if you're somebody who lives on the river. They really want everything.
We have a whole team that is collecting the standard information that we normally gather as part of any investigation, which includes pilot qualifications, logbooks, history of the helicopter, maintenance logs, and so forth.
So the pilot had a lot of experience. This was not a new pilot, so the NTSB, of course, that's part of the investigation.
Pilot held a commercial pilot certificate with rotorcraft and instrument ratings. The pilot reported 450 hours of total flight experience on his most recent medical.
And we were told the helicopter was 21 years old. It was on its sixth flight of the day when that crash took place. The company's actually closing down. The FAA says the tour company that operated that fatal flight is shutting down. The announcement came just a couple hours after Senator Schumer had one of his Sunday press conferences when he called on the FAA to suspend the company. It's New York Helicopter Tours, but they closed themselves.
The company was operating under the lowest bar of safety.
Now, what's not clear is it was not immediately clear if the FAA had forced the company to shut its operations, but it came just a couple hours after Senator Schumer had that press conference on Sunday. And, of course, we know the family that was inside, 3 young kids, Augustin Escobar. He was the CEO of Siemens Mobility. It's a rail infrastructure company, and they were in New York to celebrate some birthdays, including the 40th birthday of his wife. It was one of his kids' 9th birthdays, and that's why they had taken this helicopter flight. They just had arrived on Thursday morning from Spain for a Big Apple vacation. Their brother, he has flown in from Spain. And I imagine part of the reason he is here is to claim the bodies of his family members to bring them back to Spain. And here he was.
They left together. They left without suffering. And they left with a smile on their faces. And that's important for us. As a family, we want to remind and honor their happiness and their smile forever.
Yeah, I mean, there's you've probably seen them now. Lots of pictures of the kids getting on the helicopter, sitting in the pilot's seat before they took off. I mean, just horrendous. And, you continue to hear from people who took flights with this tour company, including this gentleman, Jerry Clapado. He's from Westchester. He says he and his wife recently flew on the very same helicopter as the one that was involved in this crash.
They were all basically, hey, this is the same exact helicopter. This is the one you were on. It's the same photo of the family and then the same photo of us with the same tail number. It was just like so surreal, so shocking.
So he took off, and so the crash took place on Thursday. He had actually been on the exact same helicopter. I mean, the exact same one on Saturday. So 5 days earlier.
Nothing seemed out of place. Obviously it's a helicopter. It was smooth going up. It was smooth coming down. The flight was what I would, describe as normal between the turns and going where we went.
And he said there was nothing negative at all about his experience.
The people that were at the company, nothing negative at all. Everything was professional, smooth. We were well informed. Nothing out of place. Nothing alarming.
Yeah, Clapado expressing his condolences, of course, to the family from Spain.
Say a prayer and say thank you to the families that are affected by this and the first responders who went and did the recovery effort. I mean, a huge thank you to them, and again, a huge condolence to the family and everyone who's no longer with us.
So the real story here is we're not going to get fast answers about how this is done. The NTSB is very deliberate when they do these investigations, so it may be a while until we really understand why that helicopter fell into the river. And there was we're going to work on more details. There was another crash. This was not a helicopter, but a plane crash. This was at the end of last week in Boca Raton. 3 people killed in that one aboard a Cessna. And the NTSB holding a press conference over the weekend saying they're going to try to get to the bottom of this.
There are avionics in the aircraft that might have saved some data, such as engine parameters, autopilot parameters, such like that. As long as they're in good enough shape, we can send them to our experts back at headquarters, and they can get information off of it.
And what local fire officials are saying in Florida is that the plane had mechanical issues when it crashed after only being in the air for about 8 to 10 minutes.
We will, of course, be looking at it. The 3 things we always look at. We always look at the pilot. We're going to look at his pilot qualifications, his 72-hour history, anything else that might be going on in his life. We're going to be looking at the aircraft. We're going to be looking at the maintenance records. We're going to be going through the records in detail.
Yeah, so we'll probably get more details about that crash as the weeks and months go on as well. All right, 5:15, let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk. Happy Monday. Good morning, Justin Ellick.
Happy Monday. Good morning to you, Noam Layden. We'll start down in Augusta, Georgia, where Rory McIlroy achieved the career Grand Slam by winning the Masters tournament at 11 under par. He defeated Brit Justin Rose in the first hole of a sudden death playoff to win a green jacket and become only the sixth golfer to complete the career Grand Slam. McIlroy joins Gene Sarazen, Ben Hogan, Gary Player, Jack Nicklaus, and Tiger Woods as the only golfers to capture the 4 major championships in the Masters era. He went on a little bit of a roller coaster ride there. No,
that was crazy. I actually tuned in just really at the perfect time when he muffed up on the 18th hole. That was crazy.
But if you tuned in that whole round, I mean, I watched the whole round. I watched him play all 18 holes. There were 4 or 5 different instances where this guy was trying to lose this golf tournament. I swear to God, I said to multiple people, I'm like, he's deliberately trying to lose. He's putting balls in the water that he would never, ever put in the water. I mean, man, the nerves were just getting to this guy, and you can see him, like, mentally, he was just totally, I mean, his head must have been spinning a million miles an hour.
It was nerve-wracking.
Nerve-wracking. Really
It was.
Rory, jeez.
Oh, my,
We were screaming at the TV when he missed that final putt because it's such an easy putt. We were like, I could make that putt.
He had the same exact putt on the playoff hole, and he puts it right in. It's like, what are we doing here, man?
Do you think someone spoke to him between the time that he went into the clubhouse and came out for that one hole to do the 18th hole over? Did his wife, a caddy, somebody come say, hey, calm down, man. You can win this thing.
I know his caddy's his best friend. They were both best men at each other's weddings. So, you know, you got that kind of guy walking with you the whole day. I would hope that being his best friend, he would be trying to calm him down a little bit. I don't think he was allowed to see his wife and his kid during, I mean, it's a 5-minute transition.
That's
true,
all
of a sudden they're back on the tee. So, but that was crazy, man. I really thought he was going to lose it outright. I didn't even think he would make it to a playoff. My goodness. But anyway, congrats to Rory. He gets his green jacket into golf lore there, pretty much cementing his legacy as one of the greats. To the NBA here in Brooklyn, Landry Shamet scored a season-high 29, playing starters minutes after replacing Mikal Bridges just 6 seconds into the game. And the Knicks beat the Nets 113-105 in the final day of the regular season. Bridges was the only starter who played for the Knicks who rested Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns, Josh Hart, and OG Anunoby before the number 3 seed in the Eastern Conference opens the playoffs against number 6 Detroit this Saturday. To the NHL in Carolina on Saturday night, the Rangers were officially eliminated from playoff contention in the form of a 7-3 loss to the Hurricanes. They've got 2 games left in the regular season slate, starting in Florida tonight for a 7 p.m. puck drop against the Panthers. In Jersey yesterday, Bo Horvat scored late in the second, and Ilya Sorokin made 25 saves, and the Islanders topped the Devils 1-0. The Isles snapped a 3-game losing streak by winning a day after they were eliminated from postseason contention with a shootout loss at Philadelphia. New Jersey is heading to the postseason for the second time in 3 years. The Devils will face the Carolina Hurricanes in the opening round. To the MLB out in Sacramento, Kodai Senga became the first Mets pitcher to throw 7 innings this year, and New York beat the Athletics 8-0 for their 4th straight series win. Up next for the Mets, they'll begin a 3-game series at Minnesota tonight. First pitch 7:40 p.m. Clay Holmes set to start for New York. In the Bronx, the Yankees dropped their weekend set against the San Francisco Giants, losing yesterday's finale 5-4. Up next for the Yanks, Carlos Carrasco gets a start in tonight's opener of a 3-game series against the visiting KC Royals. First pitch there is scheduled for 7:05 p.m. from the Bronx. That is your Sports Gnome, and I'm Justin Ellick on 77 WABC.
Hey, business owners, make your cash secure again with Secure Cash LLC. Transporting your business's cash safely in armored trucks. SecureCashLLC.com.
WABC News Time 5:20. North Carolina is reporting a record number of flu deaths.
This week, the Department of Health and Human Services announced there have been over 500 flu-related deaths for the 2024-25 season. It's the highest statewide total since reporting began in 2009. Flu-related deaths in the state were nearly on par with the number of deaths caused by COVID-19. Officials also said cuts to federal grants have resulted in a $100 million loss for the health department. I'm Jim Forbes.
WABC News Time 5:20. tax day. That's tomorrow. Have you done your taxes? I actually did mine a couple days early anyway, but the deadline, of course, is tomorrow.
For most Americans, it's Tuesday, April 15th. However, the IRS says citizens impacted by natural disasters in 12 states have automatic tax extensions to file and pay their 2024 taxes. Some extensions only apply to certain areas within those states. To find out whether or not you qualify for an extension, the IRS website has a page listing the delayed deadlines. You've heard the saying, a fool and his money are soon parted. The rest of us wait until income tax time. And if you think you can keep everything to yourself, the IRS doesn't. I'm Lisa Carton.
All right, let's go down to Florida. President Trump taking a victory lap amid negotiations with multiple countries about the tariffs. He was aboard Air Force One over the weekend, told reporters, gave some updates on the tariffs and discussions between Russia and Ukraine.
I think Ukraine, Russia might be going okay, and you're going to be finding out pretty soon. You know, there's a point at which you just have to either put up or shut up, and we'll see what happens. But I think it's going fine.
Trump also says he believes nuclear talks between the U.S. and Iran are going, as he put it, pretty good.
Nothing matters until you get it done. So I don't like talking about it, but it's going okay. The Iran situation is going pretty good.
Now, the president was on his way to Mar-a-Lago over the weekend, and then I saw him I didn't, in person, but I saw him Saturday night. He was at UFC 314 in Miami for the fights, and boy, was that a fantastic night of fights. But when he came out, you would have thought that, the biggest rock star on the planet had walked out. I mean, goes to UFC events quite often, and he always gets a positive response from that crowd. But boy, on Saturday night, it was unbelievable how loud the crowd was when he came out. And I thought for sure, if you're not a UFC fan, these fights tend to go till 1, 2 in the morning. I thought, okay, he's going to be gone by the late matches. No. The matches ended about 1:30 in the morning, and he was still sitting there watching them. So that was pretty cool to see. Top advisor to the president saying the tariffs are working. Peter Navarro pushing back against concerns that the White House does not have a plan for implementing the tariffs, saying that they were issued with a specific goal in mind.
So that's what we set, knowing full well that a lot of countries would come right to us and want a bargain. We've got 90 deals in 90 days, possibly pending.
And like the president, Navarro says the Trump White House is working to fix the unfair trading practices that keep U.S. goods out of some foreign markets.
The world cheats us. They've been cheating us for decades. They cheat us with tariffs, higher tariffs. But more importantly, they cheat us with the so-called non-tariff barriers. It's the VAT taxes, the dumping, the currency manipulation, the technical barriers that keep our autos out of Japan, the agricultural barriers that keep our pork out of Australia.
The White House also put Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick out on the news shows over the weekend, and they pulled back on some of these tariffs. When it comes to phones, computer chips, they're exempt from the tariffs. And he says they won't be exempt from semiconductor tariffs that are coming soon.
So this is not like a permanent sort of exemption. He's just clarifying that these are not available to be negotiated away by countries.
And Lutnick confirmed that tariffs on pharmaceuticals will also be announced separately.
So what he's doing is he's saying they're exempt from the reciprocal tariffs, but they're included in the semiconductor tariffs, which are coming in probably a month or two.
Yeah, it's confusing to figure out what is involved and what's not. If your eyes are rolling into the back of your head, I can understand why. Senator Warren says President Trump's tariffs are hurting the U.S. economy. The Massachusetts Democrat says the uncertainty around the tariffs will be enforced, and when they're going to be enforced, is stopping companies from making investments.
Investors will not invest in the United States when Donald Trump is playing red light, green light.
And Warren, who
with
serves
tariffs.
Sorry, Mrs. Democrat, Mrs. Warren. Warren, who serves on the Senate Banking Committee, also renewed calls for an investigation into possible insider trading, saying that the president may have committed a crime by telling allies to buy stock shortly before announcing the tariff pause.
And it's entirely appropriate to have an investigation to make sure that Donald Trump, Donald Trump's family, Donald Trump's inner circle didn't get advance information and trade on that information.
And, of course, Wall Street's trying to figure this out. The market's up, the market's down. Well, let's check in with financial expert Khalib Silver, who says anybody who tells you they think they know what's going to happen next on the markets has no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah, they're looking sour, pretty south. And just a couple of hours ago, we were speaking and futures were in the green. It just shows you how volatile and uncertain this market is right now, how investors really can't look into the future. And when we can't see the future, we typically sell first and ask questions later. So more pressure for stocks.
Yeah. All right. We'll be here with the opening bell. Markets open at 9:30 this morning. 526, the cost of raising children in the U.S. on the rise.
The new study estimates it costs nearly $300,000 to raise a child from birth to the age of 18 in 2025. That's a 25% jump from 2023's projections. The Department of Health considers child care affordable if it takes less than 7% of a family's income, but there are currently no states where the average cost of child care is within that threshold for median income families. I'm Chris Caraccio.
President Trump taking that physical on Friday. He says he took a cognitive test during that annual physical. While speaking aboard Air Force One, Trump says the results of his tests will be released, and they were released over the weekend, and they show that he's pretty healthy.
I wanted to be a little different than I took a cognitive test, and I don't know what to tell you other than I got every answer right.
Yeah, for 79, those results pretty good. He'll be 79 in June and, of course, 82 by the end of his term.
It's the 77 WABC News Hour. Sponsored by Secure Cash, LLC. Talking the news with Noah Layden. All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now, Talking the News with Noah on 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me, 536. Good morning. It is Monday, April 14th. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center. A mix of sun and clouds today. High 64. Tonight and overnight showers, low 52. And then tomorrow we'll start with rain, but sunshine in the afternoon, and the high is going to be 67 if you are walking out the door with us right now. So happy you are. 43 and partly cloudy in New Rochelle up in Westchester County. It's 41 and partly cloudy in Westfield over in New Jersey. And it's 47 and clear right outside our Midtown studios. 537 now. Mayor Adams is in the Dominican Republic this morning to pay his respect to the victims of that deadly roof collapse in that club that took so many lives, over 200 people killed. Adams flew out Sunday night with a group of elected city leaders after the collapse of the Jet Set nightclub. There were some local victims who were trapped and killed in that club collapse, including 31-year-old Manny Diaz. He was a father of two, actually a father of one on the way from the Bronx, and retired NYPD Detective Emmanuel Gomez. He was just retired from the NYPD back in February. And then, of course, we had the Major League Baseball players, one of them from New York, Octavio Dotel, and Tony Blanco were also killed in that accident. And over the weekend, you had the Dominican community, which is a large one here in New York City, getting together to mourn all those that were lost. Here was a group of them up in Washington Heights.
We feel what they feel. We lost a lot of people. We lost family members. We're in grief. And, we want to show the support.
We have to love each other and love our family, love our friend. We don't know what is the last day.
In Yonkers, people gathered there late Sunday afternoon at Lincoln Park for a prayer vigil.
Everybody who was in that party, in that table, 6 people passed away.
All right, so this is an interesting story. There was a woman, her name was Laura Fernandez, and she says she had been invited to the club that night when it collapsed. And she said she got a weird feeling when she went back to her hotel that she should not go.
But then when I was walking to my room to change my clothes, something inside me said, don't go.
And so she didn't go, and she said everybody that she was set to go with was killed. I mean, that's just wild.
Everybody who was in that party, in that table, 6 people passed away. Say thanks to God because I'm still here.
There's always a story like that. And she says, of course, tragic, and she knew these people, but she's amazed that she has their life today, Laura Fernandez. 5:40, let's go out to Queens. A fire broke out at a funeral home in Queens while services were taking place. The flames started second floor of the Chun Fook Funeral Services home. This is in Prince Street in Flushing. It's about 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday. Smoke could be seen wafting from the roof of the building.
The first arriving units were encountered with heavy smoke throughout the building. Due to the fact that it was a funeral home, there was voids and occupants that were coming out as we were trying to get in.
Yeah, so none of the mourners were hurt. The 3 firefighters suffered minor injury. It's not clear what started that fire. 5:41, let's go over to Brooklyn. A woman arrested accused of vandalizing a Tesla Cybertruck with garbage in a brick, and then wrote anti-Semitic markings on this Cybertruck that happened to be parked right next to a yeshiva. People, and she took off on a scooter, but they were able to track this woman down.
It's terrible. It's tragic that people feel so emboldened to treat others that way.
And that woman now facing hate crime charges along with assault, harassment, and criminal mischief. It comes just weeks after a similar incident in Bed-Stuy where police say people carved swastikas and the word Nazi into the door of a Tesla Cybertruck. 5:41, the NYPD looking for 2 men who shot a teenager inside a Bronx smoke shop and then took off on a scooter.
Police say the 17-year-old boy was shot in the chest after being confronted by the attackers who were dressed in all black and wearing masks. The New York Post reports it happened at 1 in the afternoon inside ZA Convenience in Soundview. The victim was taken to Jacoby Hospital in stable condition. The shop has had its share of legal problems, including a civil complaint in 2023 for alleged unlicensed marijuana sales, which forced it to temporarily close. News 12 reports there was also a shooting there in 2012 involving 2 masked men. I'm Lisa Salvati.
WABC News Time 5:42. Luigi Mangione is asking a judge to block Attorney General Pam Bondi from seeking the death penalty against him.
Mangione is accused of killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson last year. Mangione's lawyers say Bondi violated his due process, arguing that the U.S. government, quote, intends to kill Mangione as a, quote, political stunt. They cited Bondi's previous statement that the death penalty would, quote, carry out President Trump's agenda to stop violent crime and make America safe again. Andrew Whitman, NBC News Radio, New York.
WABC News Time 5:43. Andrew Cuomo, of course, the former governor, now mayoral candidate, gave a very short interview to New York One. He's really kept himself away from talking to the press and in some ways answering difficult questions. Now, I know he's going to sit down at some point with Sid, and we'll see what he has to say there. But New York One caught him on the way out of an event. He was up in Harlem, and then he was at Melba's Kitchen. And they asked him about a couple things. One of them was, what will it be like if you're able to win City Hall and then have to deal with Governor Hochul, who has been very vocal out against Cuomo since he was pushed out of office now almost 2 years ago?
New York City has to thrive. And the governor gets that, and I know that. I've had a personal relationship with her for many years. We worked together for many years. So that relationship, I believe, will be productive.
And then all he wanted to talk about is how he would fix what's wrong here in the city.
I'm running because I'm worried about New York City, because everyone I talk to is worried about New York City. We have to put the shine back on the Big Apple. And I know how to make government work.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Since he's announced that he's running, has he given a full-fledged interview to anybody? I don't think he has. So, interesting. All right, 5:44. Hundreds of protesters in Times Square over the weekend upset by the fact that Mahmoud Khalil will likely be sent packing. He's the former Columbia University student who the Trump White House is attempting to deport after he led pro-Palestinian protests in New York. Khalil has been held at a federal immigration facility in Louisiana for weeks as a legal battle to keep him in the country plays out. Here were the protesters over the weekend.
This is a horrible precedent for the Trump administration to set. They're basically saying that anyone who disagrees with them is eligible to be punished by the state and removed from the country.
So those protesters rallying against the ruling by an immigration judge in Louisiana, which the judge said Khalil can be forced out of the U.S. because he satisfies the requirements for deportation as a national security risk. These people, these protesters, say that's not right.
If they can attack Mahmoud Khalil for speaking up, for exercising his rights, then they can attack any of us. And this is a moment where every single person who cares about this democracy needs to be in the streets with us. We are not going to stand for our immigrant community, for our students to be attacked for doing what's right.
But there were a few counter-protesters who showed up, including this guy, Raul Rivera, who says the Trump White House got it about right when it comes to Khalil.
In America, you get a chance. He had a chance. He had his chance and he blew it. He didn't honor his green card, and now he's got to go back. And he's gone through the court system. He's been vetted now correctly, and they realize that he can't stay here. He has to go back. And anybody that does what he did should go back.
All right, in a moment, we'll tell you about yet another pit bull attack, this one out on Long Island. But first, 5:45, let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk, and here's Justin Allen.
Thank you, Noah Millett, and we'll start down here in Augusta, Georgia, where Rory McIlroy achieved the career Grand Slam by winning the Masters tournament at 11 under par. He defeated Brit Justin Rose in the first hole of a sudden death playoff to win a green jacket and become only the sixth golfer to complete the career Grand Slam. McIlroy joins Gene Sarazen, Ben Hogan, Gary Player, Jack Nicklaus, and Tiger Woods as the only golfers to capture the four major championships in the Masters era. So McIlroy cements his legacy as one of the greats. To the NBA in Brooklyn, Landry Shamet scored a season-high at 29 points, playing starters minutes after replacing Mikal Bridges just 6 seconds into the game, and the Knicks beat the Nets 113-105 in the final day of the regular season. Bridges started the game to extend his consecutive game streak to 556, having never missed a game in his NBA or college career. After the Knicks lost the jump ball, he committed a foul, and he left the game. He was the only starter who played for the Knicks, who rested Brunson, Towns, Hart, and Anunoby before the number 3 seed in the Eastern Conference opens the playoffs against number 6 Detroit this Saturday. Campaign added 21 points. Precious Achiuwa had 18 for the Knicks, who beat the Nets for the 10th straight time and finished the season 51-31. Tyrese Martin and Trendon Watford each scored 20 for the Nets, who finished 26-56. To the ice in Carolina on Saturday night, the Rangers were officially eliminated from playoff contention in the form of a 7-3 loss to the Hurricanes. They've got 2 games left in their regular season slate, starting in Florida tonight for a 7 p.m. puck drop against the Panthers. In Jersey, Bo Horvat scored late in the second period, and Ilya Sorokin made 25 saves, and the Islanders topped the Devils 1-0 yesterday. The Islanders snapped a 3-game losing streak by winning a day after they were eliminated from postseason contention with a shootout loss at Philadelphia. New Jersey is heading to the postseason for the second time in 3 years. The Devils will face the Carolina Hurricanes in the opening round. To the MLB, out in Sacramento, Kodai Senga became the first Mets pitcher to throw 7 innings this year, and New York beat the Athletics 8-0 for their 4th straight series win. Senga allowed 4 hits, struck out 4, walked 2, throwing a season-high 79 pitches and lowering his ERA to 1.06. Luis Torrens had 3 hits and 2 RBI, raising his average to 333. Mark Vientos, who entered hitting 120 with 1 RBI, had a run-scoring double and bases-loaded walk as the Mets won for the 8th time in 10 games. Up next for the Mets, they'll begin a 3-game series at Minnesota tonight. First pitch, 7:40 p.m. Clay Holmes set to start for New York. In the Bronx, the Yankees dropped their weekend set against the San Francisco Giants, losing yesterday's finale 5-4. New York has lost 5 of 7 games in 3 of its last 4 series. Yankees starters have a 5.40 ERA, tied with Baltimore for the highest in the major leagues. Carlos Rodon allowed 4 runs and 3 hits in 5 2/3 innings of work yesterday. And up next for the Yanks, Carlos Carrasco gets to start in tonight's opener of a 3-game series against the visiting KC Royals. First pitch is scheduled for 7:05 p.m. from the Bronx. That is your Sports Know, man. I'm Justin Ellick on 77 WABC.
WABC News Time, 5:50. The NTSB asking for patience as it investigates that deadly helicopter crash in the Hudson last Thursday. The NTSB chair was here in the city over the weekend saying that they're working on collecting photos, video, all the parts from the Hudson, making sure they can recreate this helicopter.
We have a whole team that is collecting the standard information that we normally gather as part of any investigation, which includes pilot qualifications, logbooks, history of the helicopter, maintenance logs, and so forth.
And they were talking about the pilot, who was, of course, also killed in the crash, saying he had a ton of experience.
Pilot held a commercial pilot certificate with rotorcraft and instrument ratings. The pilot reported 450 hours of total flight experience on his most recent medical.
And the FAA says the tour company that operated the fatal flight that crashed into the Hudson has shut down. The announcement came just a couple hours after Senator Chuck Schumer held one of his Sunday press conferences where he called on the FAA to suspend the company of what's called New York Helicopter Tours.
The company was operating under the lowest bar of safety.
So it's not immediately clear if the FAA forced the company to shutter its operations, but they are closed as of this morning. And, of course, no doubt you know about the family that was aboard that helicopter. Agustin Escobar, the CEO at Siemens Mobility, was here with his family, 3 young kids, his wife. They were here to celebrate the 40th birthday of his wife and one of his 3 children who was turning 9 years old when that crash took place. So his brother, he flew into New York City over the weekend, I imagine, to work out the details of bringing the bodies of his family members back to Spain.
They left together, they left without suffering, and they left with a smile on their faces. And that's important for us. As a family, we want to remind and honor their happiness and their smile forever.
And in what's always these wild circumstances, Jerry Clapato, he's up from Westchester County, says he and his wife took the exact same helicopter on the exact same tour 4 days before it crashed into the Hudson. And he said he only knows it's the same copter because he took tons of pictures of it. And when he saw the pictures of the helicopter that crashed, he said, oh, that's the exact same one he and his wife were on just 4 days earlier.
They were all basically, hey, this is the same exact helicopter. This is the one you were on. It's the same photo of the family and then the same photo of us with the same tail number. It was just like so surreal, so shocking.
And Culpato said nothing felt off about the New York helicopter tours last weekend.
Nothing seemed out of place. Obviously it's a helicopter. It was smooth going up. It was smooth coming down. The flight was what I would, describe as normal between the turns and going where we went.
Yeah, and he said there was nothing negative to say at all about the experience. He said it was everything he hoped it would be.
The people that were at the company, nothing negative at all. Everything was professional, smooth. We were well informed. Nothing out of place. Nothing alarming.
Of course, expressing his condolences to the family from Spain killed in the crash Thursday afternoon.
Say a prayer and say thank you to the families that are affected by this and the first responders who went and did the recovery effort. A huge thank you to them, and again, a huge condolence to the family and everyone who's no longer with us.
Yeah, and no doubt the NTSB, it'll be months before they're able to sort of figure out exactly what took place and why that helicopter fell out of the sky over the Hudson last Thursday. 5:54, let's go out to Long Island. Suffolk County Police say a pit bull attack left a 9-year-old in Bayshore with some pretty serious injuries. Pat Shallock says his daughter was bit in the face in their driveway as she was getting into their car Saturday morning, and the dog at one point would not let go of the girl.
I didn't have time to think, but I know how to save my daughter's life because he could have killed her. He just missed her eye.
He could not get the dog to let go. Thankfully, the neighbor who owned the dog called the dog off, and little Daniela, the 9-year-old, rushed to the hospital.
Her eyebrow was cut in half. She's got 9 staples in her head. The doctor didn't even know how many stitches he put in. Okay. She was afraid to come home. Everybody's afraid to go outside.
Yeah. The family says they want the dog taken away. Now, the town of Islip says the owners have been told to confine it for 10 days. Neighbor with kids on the block where the attack happened say, they're concerned. And as you might guess, they would.
If you know you have these type of pets, you got to at least try to do what you can to, keep everybody's safety. Fight first priority.
Yeah, so the town of Islip says their animal control officers issued the owners a ticket for not having a license for the dog. Suffolk police say they are investigating the incident. To bring her back here into the city, officials on Roosevelt Island are putting the blame on tourists for issues with the tram, but New York State apparently disagrees with that assessment.
A smear campaign is pointing the finger at visiting tourists who want to ride the famed 59th Street tram over the East River. Former members of the Roosevelt Island Operation Corps paid a PR firm nearly $170,000 to plant stories online claiming that visitors were to blame for any problems. The New York State Office of the Inspector General released a report saying while some service issues could be pinned on overcrowding, there are signs of poor management. According to the report, since the 4 executives named are no longer with the corporation, there's no danger of a continued abuse of state resources. A state ethics commission is also reviewing the report, considering any further action. I'm Liz Radabali for 77 WABC News.